How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the House of Horrors, and welcome back to the long-awaited return of 15 Phenomenal Facts. I couldn't think of a better way to bring back this series other than talking about one of my favorite theme park attractions of all time, Disney's The Haunted Mansion. I mean, do I even really need to sell you on this? The Haunted Mansion is easily the most famous haunted house attraction of all time. With the original version opening its doors out in Disneyland way back in 1969, its happy haunts have been coming out to socialize, terrorize, and mesmerize guests for 50 iconic years. Today we're going to be looking at some of the most interesting facts about this illustrious attraction that maybe even some of the most hardcore fans don't know. And these are just 15. There's obviously a plethora of interesting facts to talk about. So if you know any Haunted Mansion facts that I've left out, let me know down in the comment section below. Without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the Haunted Mansion 15 Phenomenal Facts. Number 15. The stretching room. Let's start our list with the start of the Haunted Mansion itself, the stretching room. It's one of, if not the most iconic portion of the attraction, and it's where the immersion truly begins. But does the room really stretch? Well, it depends on which version of the Haunted Mansion you're in. At Disneyland, the room is actually an elevator that guests descend in order to reach the rest of the mansion. This was due to space being very limited, and Disney does a similar thing with the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction, where guests have to descend in order to get to the main area. At Walt Disney World, however, space was far less of an issue. So in this version, the ceiling actually does rise or stretch, and guests leave on the same level that they entered. No matter which version you're on, guests are led from the stretching room into the area where they load onto their doom buggies. But as strange as it sounds, it almost wasn't meant to be that way. Number 14. There were originally no doom buggies. It's hard to imagine the Haunted Mansion without its signature ride vehicle. But originally, the attraction would have been quite different, as a ghostly butler was meant to walk you through the mansion by foot. So yeah, it was essentially just a big mansion that you walk through. However, worries about ride capacity stopped this, and it ultimately worked out for the better. I can only imagine how long it would take to walk through the whole thing. You'd have people walking too slow or stopping every 5 seconds to take pictures, and it wouldn't be as immersive just being around a bunch of people the whole time. It's better when it's just you or you and a friend in your own little world, completely immersed without any other distractions. The doom buggies are the perfect way to experience the attraction, and are the preferred vehicle of our illustrious ghost host. Number 13. Who is the ghost host? He guides us throughout the whole mansion, but who is he? There have been many theories circulating throughout the years, and well, the truth is, we're not really sure. There are rumors that it's Master Gracie, the man who can be seen aging rapidly. It could be this guy from this portrait with a noose hanging around his neck. This is similar to when we actually see the ghost host himself in the stretching room, with the noose, well, in use. But we're unsure exactly who he is. He could have been a groundskeeper or a butler, or just some random guy who wandered into the mansion, who knows? Another thing to point out is that in the mansion, whenever we hear the ghost host talk, there's this raven nearby. So perhaps the ghost host spirit came back to possess this defenseless bird. Or maybe it was this raven itself all along. The speculation could go on forever, just like the speculation of this next rumor. Number 12. Walt Disney was almost the ghost host. According to legend, in early versions of the attraction, Walt Disney himself was going to be our ghostly host. He even recorded the voiceover. It's unclear whether this was just for testing, or if this was something they were really going to go through with. Most likely, this was just a placeholder until the real voiceover could be completed. But if it was true and Walt really was supposed to be the one to lead you through the mansion, it was scrapped pretty early on. Of course, it would have been fitting for Walt to be the ghost host. He is frozen and buried underneath the mansion, right? Okay, probably not. But either way, Walt never got to be the ghost host. But let's learn about the man who did. Number 11. Paul Frees. You may not know his name, but you certainly know his voice. Lon Chaney may be the man of 1,000 faces, but Paul Frees is the man of 1,000 voices. You may know him as the voice of Ludwig von Drake, the Pillsbury Doughboy, and Boris Badenov from the Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoons. He also played basically a billion characters from those Rankin Bass Christmas movies. On the theme park side of things, besides providing the voice for the ghost host, he lends his vocal chops for the Pirates of the Caribbean, Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, and the former Tomorrowland attraction Adventures Through Inner Space. So this guy's resume pretty much speaks for itself, but he certainly isn't the only Hall of Famer who makes an appearance in the mansion. Number 10. Madame Leota. There are other famous actors who lend their voices for the Haunted Mansion, but instead let's focus on someone who lends, well, her face. One of the highlights of the attraction is Madame Leota in the Seance Room, and she's portrayed by one of the Imagineers who actually worked on developing the models for the attraction. Her name? The appropriately spooky Leota Toombs. Seriously, how perfect is that? Although she didn't record the voice, the character of Madame Leota is named after her and her face is still used to this day. She is one of the key elements of the Haunted Mansion and adds to the immersive atmosphere and story. Number 9. The Constance Hathaway storyline. There have been many different storylines to the Haunted Mansion over the years, but none of them were official. There were several elements of the story from the original Imagineering team, some elements from Walt Disney himself, but a ton of them were just fan speculation, so it was really up to your own interpretation for a number of years to figure out the storyline to the attraction. It wasn't until somewhat recently after a refurbishment that the Haunted Mansion was given an official canon storyline, revolving around the ghostly Black Widow bride herself, Constance Hathaway. We first see Constance as an old woman on a portrait in the stretching room, and later as a ghostly apparition in the attic. The story goes that Constance was a bit of a gold digger and a serial killer. Her whole gimmick was to marry rich men and then decapitate them the next day with an axe. Pretty morbid for a family ride, but hey, I like it. Now Constance's spirit haunts the attic, adorning her elegant wedding dress, possibly looking for her next husband. Are the ghosts of her former husbands also haunting the mansion? Well, it is a rumor that the infamous Hatbox Ghost could have been a former spouse of Constance, and it makes sense, he does lose his head pretty often. But more about him coming up. Number 8. The Hatbox Ghost. The Hatbox Ghost is probably the most famous and the most recognizable apparition from the Haunted Mansion. He appears in the attic as previously mentioned, and he has the ability to remove his head only for it to reappear in his hat box. He was part of the original Disneyland version of the attraction through all the testing phases, until not only his head, but the entire Hatbox Ghost disappeared from the attraction shortly after it opened. There are no real records of an exact date when he was removed, but it was most likely after a few weeks or even a few days after opening. Guests speculated his whereabouts for over 45 years, until the Hatbox Ghost reappeared as part of Disneyland's 60th anniversary celebration. Apparently back in the early days, the figure was positioned just way too close to the guests, and the desired effect just didn't work at all. Today, the new figure's effects work flawlessly with new projection mapping technology, and it seems the Hatbox Ghost will continue to haunt guests for years to come. Right now, he's only featured in the Anaheim location, but hopefully one day he can be seen in all versions of the mansion. Speaking of which... Number 7. There are 5 different versions around the world. There's a version of the Haunted Mansion at nearly every Disney castle park. Everyone knows about the versions in Orlando and Anaheim, but the international parks have their own interpretations of this classic attraction. Tokyo Disneyland's version is still called the Haunted Mansion, but the version out in Paris is known as Phantom Manor, and is known for its much darker storyline than the American versions. Hong Kong Disneyland, while not having a haunted mansion that's infested with ghosts, they have their own unique attraction equivalent called Mystic Manor. The idea is more or less the same, you're still going through a creepy mansion, but their ideology of the afterlife is so drastically different from ours. Instead of replicating our mansion, they created a unique vision for their haunted house. For some reason, Shanghai Disney is the only park that doesn't have some sort of haunted mansion inspired attraction. Come on guys, you gotta step up your game. Quit living in medieval times. Number 6. The Living Night. As if the special effects and animatronics weren't scary enough, how about some creepy-ass knights walking around? Yes, this is a real thing that happened as cast members would adorn these mysterious suits of armor and wander the halls scaring guests as they rode past. This happened sometime in the 1980s and was really short-lived. While this was happening, there were various reports of guests attacking the knights, and in one instance a terrified cheerleader actually managed to break the cast member's nose inside. Sometimes guests would throw purses or whatever else they could find, and occasionally people would actually escape from their doom buggies and start running around the attraction. In spite of all of this, the knights were removed due to budget cuts and not due to the pandemonium they would ensue. This wasn't the only time that guests would try to cause a ruckus inside of the mansion, however. Number 5. The Ballroom Spider. This one is a little bit of an Easter egg, or I guess Halloween candy would be more appropriate expression. But nevertheless, it's something that most guests wouldn't even notice on a ride-through unless they were specifically looking for it. And as I previously mentioned, it was the result of some guest shenanigans. The story goes that someone snuck in some sort of weapon. There have been rumors whether it was a slingshot or some say it was an actual pistol. But either way, someone tried to break the wall of glass separating the guests from the ballroom scene. The glass didn't completely shatter, however. All it did was leave a little hole and a spider web-like crack around it. So instead of completely replacing the entire glass wall, which would have cost God knows how much money and effort, Disney instead decided to go with the cheap and easy route and just place a small plastic spider on it. It's still there even to this day. Almost everyone misses it because the human eye is trained to look past the glass and focus on the ghost dancing in the ballroom scene, which is brought to life, or death rather, by using one of the most popular visual effects techniques. Number 4. Pepper's Ghost. The ballroom scene is one of the most iconic moments of the entire attraction, and I know I've been saying that with basically every moment, but hey, it's all iconic. Guests ride past the ballroom overlooking a party of ghosts ballroom dancing, eating, and one is even playing an organ. But how are these effects created? Well, it's an old magician's trick called Pepper's Ghost. Named after scientist John Henry Pepper, the illusion uses mirrors and lights to create a ghostly visual effect. The large pane of glass in front of the ballroom causes reflections from animatronics hidden above and below the doom buggies. This effect is pretty common, being used in magic shows, concerts, and museums all over the world. But the Haunted Mansion is one of, if not the most prominent example of this technique. The effect is so good, you may actually think that there are dead people inside of the mansion. And that certainly can't be true, right? Number 3. People sneak in ashes. Who wouldn't want their ashes scattered at the happiest place on earth? Well, a lot of people probably, but I'm sure some people do. And where better to do it than the Haunted Mansion? It just fits. Everyone else in there is dead, so why not? There have been a number of reports over the years of people actually scattering the ashes of their loved ones throughout the mansion. And Disney cast members now have to keep a close eye on this to make sure that this doesn't happen. They're constantly checking security cameras, and they even have special equipment in order to dispose of human remains. So I guess if you see someone attempting to sneak an urn into the Magic Kingdom, you should probably tell security. You can't bring dead people into the Haunted Mansion, but you can certainly die there. Number 2. The death theory. This is nothing more than an elaborate fan theory, but when you think about it, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. During the beginning portions of the ride, the ghosts don't interact with you, or if they do, they're menacing. Then it all changes in the attic scene as you descend backwards out of the attic window, which some say symbolizes you plummeting to your death into where else? The graveyard. After you've passed on to this other realm of existence, the ghosts are happy to see you, and the music changes from creepy and ominous to upbeat and carefree. We even see a human caretaker in the graveyard who seems, well, pretty shocked to see you. So yeah, I'm convinced, you're dead. So you better not leave without your death certificate. Number 1. The legendary death certificates. Okay, don't actually do this today because you're not gonna get one, so don't be a foolish mortal and even try. Legend has it that the Haunted Mansion used to hand out death certificates once you leave your doom buggy, but only if you ask for one. This is actually a heated debate between Disney fans. Some believe that the death certificates are real, and some even say that they've gotten them from past visits to the park. But most say that they were never real, and all the various images that you see online are all photoshopped. So yeah, unless we get actual confirmation from Disney, we'll never know the truth. Either way, although they aren't official, there are many sites online where you can get your own death certificate if you so choose. Because like they always say, there's always room for one more happy haunt at the Haunted Mansion. Well, that is about it for this time, guys. I hope you enjoyed the return of 15 phenomenal facts. If you know any facts that I've left out, let me know down in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. It really helps me out a lot. And as I said, there are tons of Haunted Mansion facts to talk about, so maybe I'll have to do a follow-up video down the line. But what should I do for my next 15 phenomenal facts video? If you have any ideas, please let me know. Thank you guys for checking out another episode of the House of Horror, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care and stay spooky.